I want to welcome everyone to our panel on a better future for caregivers. We're going to discuss how to make it work for caregivers, how work works for caregivers. I am joined by Charles Bonello, CEO and co-founder of Vivvi, and also Lauren Smith Brody, founder of the Fifth Trimester and the author of the book by the same name, and Dr. Kristen Drake, clinical associate professor of psychiatry at NYU Langone Health. So welcome to you guys. Thank you for being here. We're going to start by giving each of you a chance to introduce yourselves, and you guys can go around and just let our attendees know who you are, how your work relates to issues affecting caregivers. And I'm going to go ahead and start with Lauren.
Sure. So I'm Lauren Brody. I'm founder of the Fifth Trimester. Thank you, Sara. My work focuses on supporting parents directly and supporting organizations and businesses to do a better job of supporting them in the workforce, all with the goal of advancing women into leadership and solving the gender inequities of the motherhood penalty. And my work has really broadened over the pandemic to really be inclusive, as we've all kind of learned to talk about, not just parents, not just moms, but caregivers. I think everyone is a caregiver, and these supports that we can enact in the workplace and the workforce really help us all.
And how about you, Dr. Drake? Do you want to go next?
Sure. Thank you, Sara. I'm Kristen Drake. I'm a psychiatrist, mother of 2 school-age children. In my clinical work, I take care of people with the full range of psychiatric challenges, but my particular area of interest is perinatal psychiatry. So I care for people who are contemplating pregnancy, who are pregnant, who are in the postpartum period and into their parenting. My research is focused on perinatal mental health of Black women in particular and the Black mental health workforce. And I lead diversity and health equity efforts in my clinical department, my academic department. So in my work, I see every day the negative mental health impact of the current state of working while parenting, with all of the outrageous expectations and shockingly little support for caregivers that we're about.
Last but not least.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me today. My name is Charlie Bonello. I'm the co-founder, I'm the CEO, and I'm the first dad at Vivvi. My 2.5-year-old Grace has been attending our program since she was 3 months old, and that wasn't enough, so I just went ahead and had twins about 2 months ago. So I'm not just the first dad, I'm also the biggest one. So I like to joke that in the ham and egg breakfast of life, the chicken is interested and the pig is committed. Oink, oink. Vivvi's entire mission is to make exceptional care and learning accessible and affordable for working families by partnering with their employers to provide those benefits. So we work with employers of all sizes to make childcare accessible and affordable. On average, right now, we're seeing employers subsidize 75 cents of every dollar of care going to their employees through us. And again, we work with them in our schools, our partner schools, in-home, virtual tutoring, and a financial product to really be able to serve as many families as possible where they are.
Okay. Well, we're going to jump right in and talk about the Build Back Better economic recovery package. Paid family and medical leave started at 12 weeks. Then it was cut to 4 weeks. Then it was removed from the bill. Now it's back. So I want to ask Lauren first, you've been on the front lines advocating to keep paid leave in the legislation. What can you tell us from the conversations you've had with organizations like Paid Leave US? And if 73% of Americans support this, what's holding us back, do you think?
It's a great question. It's so complicated, so tangled. So many of these supports for parents are really interlinked. And I think it's important, although we have, the hashtag we've been using is we can't build back bleeding, because that is really actually what mothers are still doing if they have birthed the child at 4 weeks, which is what's in the legislation right now as written, which was a victory just to get it back in. So as much as we are adamantly pushing for it, it's really important also to celebrate the normalization of many of the supports that have stayed in, like the continuation of the child tax credit, which will lift so many children out of poverty and make that a basic right that, like, no matter whether your parents have income or not, you should be allowed to not live in poverty as a child. Universal pre-K for 3 and 4-year-olds is also in there. Childcare support. And I have to be honest, I don't actually understand yet how this is going to be delivered, but essentially what's in there right now is that if your income is less as a family, less than $300,000 per year, you are not going to have to pay more than 7% of your income toward childcare, which is an enormous boon for American families. And yet, the reason we fought so hard specifically to save paid family and medical leave is because there's actually research that shows the economic viability of it. We have states that have had it for years that show that it's effective, it's good, it's cost effective, it keeps women in leadership. And yet there's this piece of it also that shows that it doesn't always increase women's income over time, which is really what we want to see happen to correct the gender pay gap. Unless it's in conjunction with these other supports, right? Like you can't just give paid leave, but then not have available affordable childcare. We've got 50% of America living in a childcare desert is what the term is. And I know, the statistic right now about the childcare crisis, which is so real for so many of the parents I'm talking to, is that only 88% of the existing childcare spots that were open pre-COVID have come back. And that's for a whole bunch of reasons. Anyway, but so all of these things need to work together. And absent paid leave, it's not going to work as well as it could. It is something, but we have to have it in there. So many of the inequities that we see around, and I hate to be heteronormative about it because this is just not the case for many Americans, but if you have a mom and a dad who are both working for income, very, very often the mother will take a longer unpaid maternity leave than dad will. Dad most likely gets paid better for the work that he does than mom does. And that's not due to any inequities in your own relationship or your own expectations of your partnership, but it's because of the structure around you, right? And so a lot of families have fallen into that pattern. And where I see it being most easily corrected is if dads, all caregivers, elder care providers, spousal care, if all of that counts toward caring for each other, and we all see this as a human right.
Okay. We'll just keep going in that order so I don't lose any time here. Dr. Drake, do you want to go?
Sure. There's a tremendous emotional component to this as well. Like what I hear so often in my work is people feeling incredibly isolated. And there are all kinds of reasons why you might feel isolated as a parent and particularly as a new parent. But, inaction on the part of the government to care for parents and really leaving parents in the lurch sends a very clear message, and it's a harmful one from a mental health perspective.
Yeah, from an economic perspective, Dr. Drake, sorry for interrupting if I did, but from an economic perspective, this is a song as old as time, right? It's continued stratification of folks between the haves and the have-nots. Because if you're an employer and you're not offering paid leave and you're not supporting your people through it, and you're able to sleep at night, I want some of whatever you're drinking, because everybody right now has to be on high alert that they're at risk of losing their very best people, sometimes to competition, but also to the externalities around us. And so you're going to see the market taking care of a good portion of this, and probably already has. But who suffers? It's the people who aren't in as competitive a position. It's the employers who don't feel that same pressure. And inevitably, it's going to be folks who are paid less, who have a lower educational threshold. And you start to see this happen again and again and again. And so these other pieces of the puzzle are so critical, right? Because it's such an inflection point. Those 2, 3, 4 years that parents may be pulled out of the workforce may never go back again. Lauren, you've written so extensively about this, the mom penalty. That's a real calculation. That's a discounted cash flow, and everybody can understand what that is on an ongoing basis. So I don't know. It's particularly tragic over there, and it's again a repetition of what we've seen happen again and again. It's what is the purpose of government here? It's to support those that are most vulnerable. Because guess what? When these, not only the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do, because that's how we're all going to be able to succeed and continue growing together.
Well, I have a question that kind of hones in more with Dr. Drake. The pandemic's been difficult for caregivers of all kinds, caring for children, aging parents, adult dependents. How have you seen the past year and a half affect caregivers in your line of work? Because I know a few weeks ago, the American Academy of Pediatrics declared a national emergency in children's mental health.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Sarah, I've seen tremendous levels of destabilization among my patients, a number of calls from people seeking care or seeking help accessing care that I've never seen before in my career. My colleagues are all saying the same thing. So many of these people are caring for children or elders or partners. Even last year, the CDC began talking about a coming and then very present mental health crisis for adults and now children. So the levels of stress in households are just tremendous right now. And it really is a clinical issue. It needs professional help and access to professional treatment. I'll add that, you know, we also know that at least 150,000 children in the US have lost a caregiver to COVID in the last 20 months. And the majority of those impacted families are families of color. So it's also important for us to keep in mind that because of the disparate impact of COVID on communities of color, the ongoing and in some cases intensified impact of racism for workers of color, this is another area of compounding stress for workers with marginalized identities. I believe, you know, very strongly that the mental health crisis and problems with, you know, access for the most part is, you know, sort of my field's problem to take on. But I will say that it's incredibly important for employers to be thinking about, I want to say in front of this audience, that employees really need access to high quality mental health coverage that works, not on paper coverage. You know, there's a great deal of discrimination by insurance providers and administrators against members who are seeking to use the mental health benefits that they think that they have. And so this is a major limiter to access and something that I think employers and leaders of organizations could really sort of join my field in advocating for. You are the customer, you know, we aren't the customer, the member isn't the customer. So it's a problem that we see over and over again. Someone finally makes it into an office and realizes they don't have the coverage they need.
Well, and oftentimes, just as someone who does a lot of therapy and has had mental health help for the last 20, 25 years, getting good help it's different. It's not like a broken foot where almost any doctor that can handle a broken foot can handle a broken foot. Therapy and talk therapy and a lot of things, psychiatry, a lot of things you deal with, not every match is going to be a match, which means like you have to have not only have access, but options. And I would find that insurance companies still stigmatize mental health because not only on the front end when they cover it, but when you go to do certain life insurances, like insurance with specifically life insurance, things like that, questions are still asked about your mental stability. And specifically postpartum, which I had 2 out of 3 kids, I felt I needed to answer that honestly, which is what we should all do. But that was used against me then for coverage. So there's a lot here that is problematic. But looking towards the future, what can workplaces do? What should they do to make work better for caregivers, and not just during times of crisis? Lauren, I wanted you to start that.
Sure. I mean, there's so many specifics. I would say, you know, one sort of blanket takeaway is to really what you consider the definition of professional and what you consider the definition of someone's doing their job and delivering their job. And if they can deliver the 5 bullets that are in their job description, if they can deliver that in a different timeline, in a different way, from a different place, you know, this flexibility is the new norm and will absolutely attract and, you know, has been documented to be desired, you know, at a very high level by working parents right now. We also know that, you know, the mothers who have, it's somewhere between left and been pushed out. There's not really like an exact right verb for it, but the mothers who are no longer in the workforce right now, who are highly educated and highly capable, they value this stuff more than anyone and they want it. And so there's an incredible pool of people out there to be hired if you can adjust your sort of age-old expectations of what it means to be a good worker, not stigmatize parents by only offering this kind of flexibility as like a mom benefit, but truly make it for all and be really, really reasonable about it. And there's all kinds of ways to offset the motherhood penalty in particular, including looking at some of the supposed, you know, soft skills that women provide. And women are, you know, the GDP would increase if we had, you know, parity in executive roles from, you know, all over across the gender spectrum. You know, we know that there's like a real economic case to be made for retaining women. But also I think some of it is a little more almost like, Kristen, in your world, like psychological of we've been conditioned to think that like the things that make women good leaders are so feminine, like being a good nurturer. Well, like the best dads and best leaders I know who are men are also incredible nurturers. So let's reward those skills, not just the bean counting, not just the dollars brought in, not just the hours clocked, but what did you do to help retain people? What did you do to help build a team that works and that thinks progressively? Those things need to be rewarded in people's annual reviews as well.
Okay, I'd love to hear what you have to say about this too, Charles.
You know, from our perspective, it's I said this in our pre-call, right? This is a problem that money can help, money can fix. And may all of our problems be something that a check can fix, right? So like the baseline is everything that Lauren said. It's creating a culture and an environment where people are free to be their best selves, because that's how you're going to get the best productivity. But look, here's the thing. And we often say this to potential clients and existing clients because they've said it to us. Everybody is spending on childcare. What the employers have a choice to do is decide whether or not that's an investment or an expense. It's an expense if people are leaving the workforce. It's an expense if you have a miserable place to work that's falling below expectations and goals. It's an investment if you're keeping your best people, if you're attracting new ones, and you're allowing everybody to work together. Because this is as much about equitability as it is about supercharging your business. You know, caregivers, whether moms, dads, children of elderly parents, people with, with people with different abilities, they all need support. And unless you work in one of the rare industries that I can't figure out, or I've never really heard of, where you work in a particular silo, a caregiver reports to somebody, works with somebody, and has other people reporting to them. And to unlock that bottleneck, this isn't chemical engineering, this is time. There's only X number of hours per week. And I think we were talking about this before, the average parent now is spending 27 hours more on care per week than before. Where do you find 27 extra hours in a week other than sleep or work? It's not sustainable, and it's a math problem. It just needs to figure out more capacity there. That's kind of my perspective.
Okay, and I want to make sure, I'm going to give you each another question because I want to leave a little time for the Q&A because I talked right through it yesterday in my other panel. So I want this, I'm not skipping you, Dr. Drake, but Lauren, this question specifically for you. One thing I've heard a lot from caregivers, especially working parents, is the need for flexibility. Flexibility in terms of number of hours, they're working, where they're working from, when they need to be online. For many caregivers, some of the bright spots of the pandemic were the opportunities to work from home or work asynchronously. What do you think are the enduring lessons from the pandemic about workplace flexibility, and how can these policies be leveraged to best support caregivers?
So it's funny that a lot of those skills and things that we've seen implemented by workers and sort of self-advocacy are things that brand new moms have been doing for a really long time with a lot of pain and detriment and, their salaries cut because of it and bias against them. And now we're all in this together. And so, my best advice about negotiating for anything around flexibility is to frame it not just as something we're so tempted to think of these things as like, oh, this is for me in my personal life, because the stakes are so high when it's about being able to smile at your teacher's kid, to be there for bath time, right? It feels so personal. And yet you have to remove yourself from it to the degree that you understand that whatever you're advocating for, there are a lot of other people around you who do not have the same degree of privilege that you do to speak up. Their microphone is not as big. And so when you present plan of how you're going to do your job flexibly, do it in a way that also expresses the fact that you're making progress for your employer, make them a more attractive employer, cut down on attrition, help with recruiting, and help a whole lot of other people around you who may not have quite the ability to speak up the way you may.
Dr. Drake, the theme of this conference is, what kind of leader do I need to be now? What do you think workplace leaders should be doing to create work cultures that celebrate caregiving and recognize the contributions of caregivers?
Yeah, thank you. I love this question. I think that, in a general sense, a humanist approach to leading is the way forward. Recognizing that people have basic human needs and responsibilities outside of their jobs, and that these responsibilities make them better workers, not worse workers. We know this. There's neuroscience behind this. And so that looks like, paying a living wage, recognizing the structural reality that what employers do not provide in the service of the work, families and workers are providing, subsidizing themselves, which is just upside down and causes a fair amount of emotional distress. I'll say addressing mistreatment, like swiftly and decisively to make the workplace a safe place for everyone. And then, avoiding high stakes uncertainty points. This is related to what you were saying, Lauren, with clear and inclusive policies. So on top of the challenges of preparing to grow a family or dealing with a loved one's illness, you're not also trying to sit with the Human Resources Department and write the policy yourself. I can't tell you the number of times I sit with patients and I ask, well, what's available to you? And they don't know, and their HR department doesn't know. And that is just an area where a tremendous amount of distress grows. And like Charlie's saying, it's avoidable. It's avoidable with like attention and resources.
Okay, well, I'm going to throw this next question to Charles. With schools and daycares closed for remote learning, securing reliable childcare was one of the biggest challenges for working parents during the pandemic. How should workplaces be investing in childcare to help meet the needs of parents?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is the billion-dollar question. It unlocks so much for families and for employers. And really, it's categorical. The way that we choose to approach it is an omni-channel approach, and that means childcare is such a personal and intimate decision for families that they should be able to choose on their own behalf whatever works for them. Because as the employer, what do you care if they're using a childcare program or something? The support solutions available to employers are building something on site, and historically, this has been limited to, call it the Fortune 100s, companies that have big campuses. There's the opportunity to help subsidize care through a provider like Vivvi or directly to employees. And look, one of the things that we've recently launched is a financial product called Care Credits. And what we found were that there were certain types of parents that, for whatever reason, couldn't access a school or didn't want to have somebody come to their home. But it's not like they're without care. It's just care is usually grandma, or it's a neighbor, or it's a cousin, or it's somebody that they trust. We have to lean into those structures, but stop requiring that to support the weight of the entire economy and every parent, right? So it's supporting those people by giving them dollars to be able to do it, because as long as people are able to show up and be their best selves, and by the way, a lot of times this is in a clinical context where there is no such thing as remote work and people do have to show up to work. Again, it's identifying the source of the pain, identifying what you want the ideal outcomes to be, and investing dollars behind it, because that's where you can start figuring out what that ROI figure looks like. Again, we always advocate for flexibility.
I want to make sure we get to some questions. For anyone watching, you can post your questions in the chat. I tried to scroll through. I want to make sure I'm not missing any, because you guys are probably more familiar with this. If you see any question jumping out, let me know, because I think they aren't from. There are some in Q&A. Okay, here we go. This is from Anonymous. Without a comprehensive national strategy for paid leave and childcare yet, benefits vary from state to state. How remote teams spread across states? Navigate the. I don't know if I'm reading this wrong. How remote teams spread across states navigate these differences? How should remote teams spread across states? So jump in with anything you got from any of you.
I think it's really important if you have, if you're running a business or organization that has offices in different states or, potentially even different countries. I think for equity's sake, do whatever the most, I hesitate to say generous, but it is. But so the most humane plan, whatever is offered, that seems like most generous in one office, that's what everybody should have access to. It is part of the reason why I really think that we need a federal plan as opposed to having it handled just at the state level, is that this stuff gets really tangled. Many of these states have rolled things out on different timelines. I'm hearing from HR departments that with all best intentions, they don't always know how to handle people's requests, what has to, align with FMLA federally, what, people's disability, how it all works. And again, as Kristen was saying, it just becomes a problem for the parent themselves to have to untangle. And that's, you run out of energy, steam, time, you get really resentful, and you quit your job is what ends up happening. So just do the best you can for your employees based on what's most required in the most generous location.
Let's see. There's another one. How do we make sure that policies that affect caregivers include the voices of caregivers? Does Dr. Drake, do you want to address this one?
I think this is a call out to have, participatory processes in organizations. And again, there's an emotional component. How does it feel to have, the leadership team that may or may not include parents of young children, often not, hand down a policy that doesn't work for you, and then there's no discussion. And that's just a terrible idea. And as Charlie was saying, you can, people can say what it is that they need, and it's a help, as a leader, to hear what will work for your org and for your specific people. It should be thought of as making the job easier and not harder.
I will add, there's an amazing organization called Vote Mama. There's a foundation and then also the organization that's a PAC, and they support not young, sorry, that's I don't mean to use that language. They support parents who are running for office up and down, specifically the Democratic ticket, but this would be true sort of, in a nonpartisan way as well, to be able to run for office. And in order for someone to run for office, they have to consider it a full-time job, whether it's for dog catcher or for president of the United States, right? And so in order to do that, they need childcare. So what this organization does is it actually has changed federal law, but is now changing it state by state. And I think they've got like almost half the states passed at this point to allow for campaign donations to be used for childcare for people. What that does is it allows moms and dads of young kids who are in the thick of this mess to be able to have the resources to fix it and be in government. And so I think, it sounds lofty to say like vote in people with your beliefs, but like that's how you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a question, and that kind of speaks to what Charles said about money solves it. It's just whether you have that or not. But what policies and programs do each of you hope to see in the next 5 to 10 years? Charles, why don't you start?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that I think about it from two ways, one for the parents and one for the employers, because it's such a working with employers is such a powerful lever to create new supply. And the only way we're going to solve this is by creating new supply. And I think there's, call it 3 big things that could be done over here. The first is there's a federal tax credit called the Credit for Employers, provided child care services and facilities that reimburses employers for about 50 cents of every dollar that they put into licensed child care programs for their employees. That needs to be publicized because very few people take advantage of it. It should be reversed so that it's no longer just non-refundable, but it's refundable in nature. We're getting to really wonky accounting things right here. And it should be increased so they can support employers of all sizes and not just call it the biggest ones. The second thing is I think that the cap on spend for new childcare, for childcare capacity in this bill is revolutionary and could totally change the game. And the final thing is a regulatory thing, which again gets very wonky. But part of the reason that it's so difficult to build new childcare capacity is generally around the country, it has to be on the ground floor. And that's the most expensive space in any market. The second floor is the cheapest space in any market. If you're able to allow childcare to be on the second floor, you're not going to compromise life safety at all. And you're going to be able to flood the market with 3 to 6x available space. And it's something that landlords would be thrilled to give up because what else goes on the second floor of the building?
Did not know that. Would Lauren, Dr. Drake, would you guys like to address this as well? What would you like to see in the next 5 to 10 years?
I don't want to wait 5 years for it, but I would like to see mental health parity enforced. There's a law now that is meant to make mental health care a human right, like health care should be a human right. It's enforced spottily and incompletely, and there's a desperate need for that this minute.
I will shock no one and say that I would love to see paid family and medical leave passed at a federal level to the highest degree. If we get these 4 weeks right now, they will become law. They will become normalized the way we have normalized a completely arbitrary number of 12 unpaid weeks to think like, oh, if it's hard for you to go back to work at 12 weeks, you think something's wrong with you, you feel mom guilt. Like, no, all the science points to 6 paid months. So let's get the 4 weeks in now. Let's help the 25% of American women who are going back to work after 10 days or less, still bleeding. And then let's improve upon it. But we got to normalize it culturally in order to be able to make it even stronger.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you all. We've run right up against the clock, which we tend to do here. But thank you to our 3 panelists, Lauren, Charles, Dr. Drake. I know your insights and experiences have been invaluable for our attendees, as well as myself. And for all of those tuning in who'd like to dig a little deeper into how workplaces can better support caregivers, I recommend downloading the Charter Report, A Better Future for Working Parents, a playbook for leaders in organizations. It's available for free at charterworks.com. So definitely check it out. So thank you guys, but all of you for all the insight and knowledge, but also thank you for everyone who's watching and sending in questions.